If you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show with your hosts Joey and Holly Baird.
We talked about dehydrating in the earlier segment there, but we're going to talk about canning. It's kind of a preserving type of program today. Now, canning to some people is a very scary proposition, a very scary occupation, I guess, or job to do in the garden. And some people strictly don't can because they are scared, one, of improper canning, and they've heard stories of people being sick. Two, people don't want to can because on the pressure canning side, they've heard these stories of pressure canners exploding, and grandma told me this, that type of thing.
And maybe they don't know anybody who's ever canned.
Right.
Like that was me. I didn't know anybody who ever canned. I was like, that's not what city people do. And I obviously...
And we found out with the guests that we've had on this program, it doesn't matter if you're 20 stories up or in the country, everybody, the canning is for everybody.
Right. So,
and when you go, when you come visit us, if you're able to, at one of Holly's Basics of Canning, we go over some of this material. Now, one of the things is canning safely.
Right.
And how do we do this?
Sure. So this is tips for successful canning and canning safely. So what you want to do is you want to, first of all, you want to think, do I want to can that? You might see this cool recipe for I don't know, we did pickled Swiss chard stems. And you're like, well,
we did it safely.
We did it safely.
But it tasted like pickled celery.
It was weird.
Yeah, it was not a good...
But so or say you get this overabundance of whatever vegetable, and you're like, well, I don't really like salsa, but maybe I like my own salsa. It's really not going to be, it might be tastier, but it's not going to be any
You don't
different.
like salsa, it doesn't matter what kind of salsa you make, you're still not going to like salsa.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to kind of think, is this something I want to have in my pantry that I'm going to eat at some point? We don't eat a lot of jam and jelly, and at one point we canned a lot of jam and jelly. Luckily for us, we gave it away. But that's something you have to keep in mind. So that's one thing. Also, is it safe to can? What process am I using? How am I canning this? So things like if you're going to water bath can, which is a very typical ease into canning way, if you can any vegetables that are low acid, you have to either pickle them, typically pickle them, add an acid to the canning brine, or if it's something like fruit, you have to add sugar, sometimes salt. It just depends. So you have to be smart about how you're canning.
Which if you're going to can and you're going to start off with, don't worry about pressure canning. Don't even think about that. Stick with the water bath. Understand the basic science and the properties and all that goes on with that. And then your pressure canning becomes much easier once you understand that.
Right. And I'm going to say that even though I started canning, I don't know, probably 8 years ago?
2010, 11, yeah.
So I learned a lot from Joey, and I read a lot of books, and I looked at stuff online. I also took a couple classes through the Milwaukee Recreation Department, and I would highly recommend doing that.
With Milwaukee County Master Canner, Christina Ward. She's been on the program.
So that's a great resource. Those classes are very cheap.
And you get to take home what you make.
take home what you can.
And she doesn't let you do it wrong.
No, she's definitely a really good instructor. So you learn a lot there, too. I also took a fermentation class as well. So there's a lot of different classes that you can take there. So that's one thing. You want to keep it clean. You want to be safe. So if you use a chopping board for raw chicken, even if you've cleaned it or whatever, you don't want to use that for your canned vegetables or fruits.
If you're going to do a lot of canning, designate specific pieces of equipment strictly for the canning procedure across for years. Don't worry. Don't use that for any other application in the kitchen besides the canning. Yes.
So that's another one. Also, even things like soups, spoons, ladles, spatulas, like spoons and ladles. You want to make sure those are not metal. So you can use plastic or wood, but not metal because they can have a reactive effect.
And when you're doing this canning procedure, number one, if you've never done it before, and you can ask online if you don't know anybody who does can, sit in or have them come over and help them, not do it for you, but have them help you, because that makes a tremendous difference when you have a well-veteraned canner behind you going, okay, this is how you do it, and this is why you do it. If you don't know anybody in your church or your gatherings or whatever, ask online. Somebody will most likely be able to come and help you with that. Again, when you're doing your canning in your kitchen, small children, pets, animals, all that, make sure they're out. Now, I'm talking young children, like little infants, that 2, 3, 4. If there's 10, 11, that type of thing, you have to be your own discretion on that. If they're able to help and they want to learn, that's fine. But pets and all that, they need to be out of the...
Like, you probably shouldn't have your 1-year-old crawling around on the kitchen floor while you do this, because, first of all, you could possibly trip on that child, or...
you're dealing with very hot things.
Yeah. You don't need to, scald your little one. But, yeah, so definitely keep that in mind. Read the recipe. Do you have the ingredients on hand? Do you have enough time? Sometimes you get these recipes, and it's like, soak this for 3 hours or 24 hours.
And you get home from work at 7 o'clock, and that would push you at 10 o'clock before the canning procedure even begins. So you want to be aware of that, as well as if your recipe, what is the standard now? If the recipe is how old, you don't want to use it?
I would say at this point now about 10 years old. If it's over 10 years old, then you don't want to use it. It might not be safe. If you're not sure, you can always reach out to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, your UW Extension, etc., things like that. So,
and then what resources can we find that we know are reliable, safe sources? We just don't want to go to Google how to do this and just pull up the full first recipe we see. There needs to be some credibility behind that recipe, that it just wasn't and whoever from Baltimore, Maryland, that made this up 25 years ago and it worked for her.
Right. So there's some good websites. One is the bulk canning website, which is freshpreserving.com. Anything that comes out from Better Homes and Gardens, that's good. Taste of Home, they have good canning recipes. And then SB Canning, so she's from Santa Barbara, SB Canning. She's a master canner out there. She's got great recipes. And the National Center for Home Food Preservation. All of those are safe resources. Oh, and Marissa McClellan that we had on the show, she's from Food in Jars. She's great too.
If you just search and you're in the Milwaukee area, search Master Canner of Milwaukee County, she will come up as that. So use the right equipment, get the right equipment, make sure you have the right equipment on hand. And with anything, cooking, preserving, the fresher you can get, the better it's going to be. If you don't want to harvest cucumbers on Monday and then decide to pickle them on Sunday afternoon, they're going to lose a lot of flavor, a lot of structure to them because they begin to break down after you harvest them. That's how organic and produce and nature works. As soon as something is harvested or dies, it begins to turn back into the soil.
We get a lot of questions about mushy pickles, and one thing I have to say is that as soon as you harvest them, you do want to can them. So if you're like, I just want to do a small batch real quick, then do a small batch real quick. Another thing is to work quickly. Do not let those sit in that brine for a long time.
Make sure you pickle the right kind of pickles or cucumbers.
That too.
There's pickling cucumbers and slicing cucumbers. Don't intermix the other because they do turn
definitely
mushy.
You just want to work quickly, and if you are really that bothered by cucumbers being too mushy, then do like a refrigerator method.
Or do a small, instead of quarts, do pints because they're in the heat less and they become opportunity of less soft and more crunchy.
Definitely.
And finally, don't overwhelm yourself. Let's start small. Just like gardening, don't decide you're going to do 300 jars and then 25 jars into your season, you're like, I'm done, not going to do this anymore. Be smart about it. Understand how much you feel you can actually handle with the time that you have available, and then do it that, and then gradually work yourself up to a point where 2 years ago we did 320 jars. Last year our harvest was not that great, and we didn't do nearly that many. But know what you're capable of doing.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.